Hey BookTube! Let's talk about The Winner's Trilogy by Marie Rutkoski.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and today I want to talk to you about The Winner's Curse, The Winner's Crime, and The Winner's Kiss, all of which make up The Winner's Trilogy by Marie Rutkoski. On audio, this is narrated by Justine Eyre. I want to tell you about Justine Eyre before I really get into the books, and that's because I've never been a fan of hers. I've listened to some other things that she has narrated and I didn't like it. And the reason is that she has a bit of a whine to her voice. When she enunciates her words, she draws them out at the ends, and it sounds a little bit like a whine. And here is an example.
Kestrel especially liked it when they cheated. It made beating them not quite so easy. She smiled and left them. Then her smile faded.
That drives me right up a wall. Now that may be fine for you, but not for me. So the way I solved this problem and ended up thoroughly enjoying her narration was to speed her up. One of the greatest things that Apple has done for the iPod, the iPhone, and iPad, whatever, is to give you options in the playback of audiobooks. So I sped her up to 1.5 the speed.
Kestrel especially liked it when they cheated. It made beating them not quite so easy. She smiled and left them. Then her smile faded.
Fixed the problem. And the thing was, it clipped off the ends of the words. It made them go fast enough that the whine got eliminated pretty much altogether. She is an exceptional voice actor. This woman knows what she's doing. She's narrated all kinds of books all over audible.com and I'm sure other places. And not only that, but the way that she voices these characters rings true with what you're discovering about each character as the book goes along. I really like that in a voice actor because I think that sometimes they can impose a personality through the way that they voice a character onto a character that doesn't even match with what you're learning about the character or the person that you are coming to know that character to be. She did that really well. And she did some really interesting things with accents in this book. I say that because of the way that the book is set up and the way that I can relate to it. I'm a North American person. I live in the United States, so everything I hear from the outside of the world coming into me is accented in some way, shape, or fashion. That's where I'm coming from when I talk about the way that she did this. This book starts out in a country that has been invaded and occupied by another, like an empire. And our main character has lived there for 10 years, so she speaks the native language fluently. Well, the way that Justine Eyre did it was to give her an accent that is different from the place where she lives. The people where she lives all have my accent, which I think is so interesting because she basically treated Haran, which is the country where everything starts, as North America. And then she gave accents to the characters as they came into Haran, as they would sound to a Harani ear. I thought that was fascinating, mainly because the first person that you hear speaking is the main character who has an accent. Really interesting. Now, her accent is kind of a conglomeration of Europe in general. And then there's another country that comes into the plot in the second and third books, and she gave those characters a South African accent, which I just thought was so great because it's so far from a European accent and from an American accent. It's like, even geographically thinking about it, it's like it's the other part of the way. I mean, it's the opposite end of the world from North America and from Europe. You got a sense that you were starting out in one country and then everything else was foreigners coming in, which really plays into the plot. Stroke of brilliance on the part of Justine Eyre and whoever directed that vocal performance. Okay, so let's talk about the books. These books are all about strategy, and one of the things that I found the most interesting was the fact that they play this game called Bite and Sting. It echoes the whole larger plot that's happening within the scope of the story over the 3 books. Kestrel is the main character, and she is the daughter of the general who led the invasion to occupy Haran from Valoria. That's where they're from. That's the empire. The Valorians are kind of like the 300, sort of, in that, it's kind of that attitude that women say to men as they're going off to war, come home a victor or come home dead on your shield, but one or the other. Failure is not an option. I don't know. I kind of got to thinking that they were like Klingons in a way, because honor is such a big deal to them. There's some great side characters that come into play, and they do a great job of kind of illustrating the contrast between Kestrel and kind of her crowd that she runs with, which are the privileged elite of the Valorians in Haran. The book doesn't really get out and out brutal, but there's a lot of conflict going on and warfare. So you have that kind of happening, and then you have spies. You don't know who's a spy and who isn't. And amid all this, you've got everybody playing bite and sting. The second book opens up with Kestrel in the Valorian capital, and she spends pretty much the whole book trying to find her way through the political minefield of all of these people at court who are posturing and maneuvering for power. And she's trying to not get killed and not get anybody else killed, and yet find some peace between everybody in the process. And that's an interesting thing to watch. And so then in book 3, you have another key player who enters in, and things resolve, and they resolve beautifully. There is no epilogue, and it didn't really need an epilogue. I was very happy with that. The second book does end on a massive cliffhanger, so be aware if you're going to read these books, you need to read them all like back to back, because you're going to die if you don't get that resolution that the third book provides. I loved the strategy. I thought the characters were very well developed, and this plot was so strategic in the way it was written, the way that all of the players did the things that they did, and for the reasons that they did them. And you didn't always know what the reasons were. That kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. It always had me interested to see what the next thing was going to be. At the end of the third book, the book is written in alternating points of view, and the way it's written in such short little bursts, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I could not stop listening. It was so riveting. Marie Rutkoski's imagery in this book is absolutely beautiful. There was time after time after time that she would describe something, and it was just so spot on. I mean, she would give you a sense of what the thing was, and then she'd say it, and it was like she drew that thing right out of your head. Intrigue, politics, power plays, political maneuvering, people caught in traps and webs and not knowing how to escape, and yet not wanting to kill everybody else in the process. It was excellent. I can't do anything but rave about these books. This trilogy was amazing. So if you've read it, I'd love to know what you thought. And any little things that you got from the story, I would love to know what those were. Just kind of because, anytime someone tells you, well, I found this about it, and it's like, oh yeah, oh wow, I noticed that too. Or this bugged me, or this didn't. Let me know. Let's talk about it in comments, and that is it for now for me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.